on. Good.
Yeah.
And welcome back, everybody. And we are delighted to welcome back Fred, Big Star 1000, to the channel. Here he is. We've just been having a very interesting conversation as a warm-up.
We had a rant.
A warm-up rant, not really broadcastable, but
yeah, will not be published.
Director's cut.
It's about you. It's about you people.
Just to put things in context, this is how crazy the world is at the moment. Fred is going back into lockdown in Melbourne because there's 18 cases in Melbourne. The UK is having Freedom Monday tomorrow, and we've got 51,000. That's where we are. And I still haven't seen John.
No,
but we are going to meet up in August.
Very, very soon.
Yeah. And to anyone who hasn't watched this particular series, we've been doing these lockdown meetups really ever since, March last year, inviting our favorite VC legends to come and share 7 records that they've been grooving to, maybe a book or a film. I've just remembered my book isn't here, but anyway, yeah, and delighted to have Fred back, you know, a true legend and original.
Oh, stop. Legend. I'm just some bozo who makes videos, you know, like it's not, you know, not doing anything special. You know? Nothing special, you know. Like I just marvel at the fact that people actually watch me. You know, it's like, you know, well, who would watch this shit? Oh, people. Oh, there's some. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make videos, but you too as well. I mean, again, it reminds me of the last video. Both of you, you know, very highly valued, and you know. And you know, legend as well, but you know, it's all a matter of perspective, obviously.
Do you want to kick off, Fred? Actually,
yeah, you kick off.
Okay, so well, I haven't even thought about this. We were just ranting and raving before, and I thought I haven't. Okay, well, since we're talking about since we're talking about lockdown, we're talking about here is a wonderful lockdown record. By that I mean a record that was made last year in lockdown. I don't know if you've come across this wonderful record. It's by a duo, Desron Douglas and Brandy Younger. So these two are a couple. They live in Harlem in New York, and she is a harpist and he is a double bass player, both African American. And they couldn't gig, they couldn't do anything during the obviously last year in New York was severely hit by COVID-19, and so they started doing these lunchtime sessions that they would broadcast, and people would just come in, make donations, and they would just play covers or and so on this you have you know, you've got songs by, because she's a harpist, is, you know, Alice Coltrane, and there's you know, there's The Creator as a Master Plan that's covered. There's some also some quirky covers like Never Can Say Goodbye, you know, the classic disco tune. And it's just a mix of, you know, what they've been jamming along together, and it's just a beautiful, you know, sort of jazz verging on spiritual jazz. It's just 2 instruments, 2 acoustic instruments, and there's a bit of banter in between the tracks, you know. So Desron Douglas, you know, he banters with the you know, with his wife, and it's just a beautiful you know, like it's the epitome of lockdown records, really. It is on International Anthem, the Chicago label, and it features a beautiful piece of artwork. I highly recommend this. It's difficult to explain, you know. If you like Alice Coltrane, you know, it's a very stripped down version of, because there's no sax or anything like that. It's just harp and double bass. So have you heard this record or seen this record?
No.
Very, very highly recommend. Beautiful lockdown records. It's called Force Majeure.
Right.
yeah, which is the legal term for unforeseen
Yeah.
event of either of nature or something that you can't stop happening. So there you go. It's my first record for you.
Nice. John?
Yes. What am I going to go for? Okay. I just got prompted to pull this out. This is a very old record by Wendy and Lisa from way back in I think it was in 1990. And I just heard a fantastic interview with Wendy Melvoin on an American podcast station. And she's such an interesting character, really. And I've been generally intrigued by how influential they both were on Prince, actually. I mean, we obviously know that they were influenced by him, but also what kind of key characters they've been in the development of people like Michel Ndegeocello and a whole range of really Blake Mills, who's somebody who's getting a lot of attention at the moment. All these people, they were in there, really. And just getting this album out, it just sounds great. I mean, some of it sounds a little bit kind of late 80s, early 90s production-wise, but there are 4 or 5 tracks on here which are just great, actually. And of course, one of the main collaborators on the album is Chris Bruce, who's virtually on all of the Michel albums. So you can see all these kind of lines coming out of them, actually. But yeah, really underrated kind of artists, I think. And they're still doing lots of soundtrack stuff and lots of TV stuff now, actually.
Is it called Eroica? Is that what they are?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. Yeah, sounds great, actually.
Looks very interesting indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had the second drop of Record Store Day, and it's something that I'd never been to until last year, and we've got a record shop in our town, and I really like the guy who runs it. So, I went there yesterday and I picked this up. I didn't even know it was coming out. This is a 1998 John Martin album that, again, when I stuck it on Discogs just to say I bought it, apparently when it came out, the first time there was only 500, so it was just ridiculous prices. And this is basically a John Martin covers album. He wasn't in the best of shape in 1998, and to be honest, I think I stopped buying John Martin albums after the kind of Phil Collins collaborations.
Yeah.
Oh, you brave.
But this is but they're okay. Grace and Danger is a nice album, actually. Revisit it.
No,
But
I'm
this is
just kidding.
but this is great. There's some wonderful. It just sounds stripped back again. It's got the double bass is back. He does an amazing version of Strange Fruit, which kind of you just wouldn't imagine it would sound right somehow, but it does. But I think that the crowning glory is Glory Box, a version of the Portishead track.
There's a version of Glory Box on this.
Wow. A really amazing version of Glory Box, really worth listening to.
I will seek that out. I love Portishead.
Yeah. So very nice. A really nice. It's we were talking about audio file nerds, but I mean, it is a half-speed mastering pressing. It does sound very good if that's your kind of thing, but generally it's back out on vinyl, and it's definitely worth listening to.
Very cool. You sold it to me with the Glory Box color.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do a segue. So we'll try. The fun thing with these sessions here is to try and, well, if you can, try and be in the same ballpark or whatever.
Yeah.
And if not exactly in the same ballpark, I think close enough. About 10 years ago, in my local, we call them op shops here, with thrift stores in where I live in the suburbs of Melbourne, I came across this fantastic record. It's by an artist called Beverly Glenn Copeland, and here she's a transgender man now. So I think she goes by the name, or he goes by the name of Glenn Copeland, Canadian. I don't know if you can read this. Am I in the right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I was in the thrift store, and I found this record, and I knew nothing about it. I'm not going to pretend. And I opened it, and obviously, you do what all record nerds do. You open it, and you look at the credits. You look at the instruments. You look at the And back then, I didn't have any smartphone to tell me, it was like $1 or whatever. And I saw that Jeremy Steig was playing the flute on this, and Lenny Breau was on electric guitar. And I thought, there's an organ, there's a flute, there's drums, there's bass guitar. This is going to be good. And in fact, it's an actual, soul folk, jazz folk masterpiece. This is an absolute solid gold, 10 out of 10 record. And it's reminiscent in ways of John Martin. Tim Buckley comes to mind very strongly with this. It's very this sort of mixture between folk and a very sort of distinct jazzy, some jazzy arrangements. Who else comes to mind is people like Bill Withers and people like Terry Callier. With a woman, so a woman singing, a very soulful voice. It's just a brilliant record. I think you both would really love this, Verling Glenn Copeland. But
quite unusual to get Lenny Breau playing on somebody else's record. He didn't do that very much.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic, and this is the first press as well, which is incredibly rare. But this is I'm cheating a bit. There's 2 records there because last week I actually bought this, which is also by Verling Glenn Copeland. This is what she did in the 80s, and it's kind of the same thing, but all synth. Like she abandoned guitars, and this is like a new age record, and it's kind of beautiful as well. And this is just been re-released on Transgressive Records, 2021 reissue. And I'm thinking to myself, the record that I've just shown is quite hard to get, but this one has just been put out. So I thought, I'll just kill 2 birds in one stone. And this is the one I bought. I bought this about 2 weeks ago, and I've been really enjoying it. It's kind of very new agey, but a beautiful, beautiful record, but not a patch on the first record that I showed you. So I don't know. It's I'm sure viewers will know. Some people will know.
I love the artwork. That artwork back, it's gorgeous. That tree is fantastic.
It's a beautiful folk jazz record. In that sort of Tim Buckley meets Minnie Riperton kind of tradition.
That's great.
Sounds like a good tradition to me. Am I on?
You are on, John. You're on.
I don't think we've shown this yet on the. This is kind of this is Sam Wilkes, who's an American. He's a bass player, and there's a whole range of stuff from this kind of pool. I think Mark showed in the last video we did the music for bass and saxophone, didn't you? I think actually, but this is again with some of the same kind of crew of people on it. People like Sam Gendel, the alto player. We've got Lewis Cole's playing on here. Just a whole, and it's just a very nice record actually.
Right.
Really interesting textures, sounds, very kind of actually very well produced. You kind of think it almost feels a bit DIY when you look at it, but in fact there's a lot of post-production going on in this record, I think. Yeah, really interesting stuff, somewhere between improvisational rock and jazz and all kinds of different kind of feel to it. Really good stuff. And basically most of the stuff that's coming out on this Leaving Records label is really, really good. Actually, it's kind of classy stuff. Quite easy to find. Some of the stuff's got a bit rare now and a bit hard to find on vinyl, but this one's pretty much around. So Sam Wilkes.
Nice. Do you know those guys, Fred? Sam Gendel?
No.
Oh, they're
I don't.
Really worth checking out.
It's really, really worth checking out. It's a great
but now you've showed it, I'm definitely going to check it out. Yeah.
I'm not really showing this, but I'm showing this as context because I know you showed this, Fred, because I know Mr. Fartboy gave this to you. This is the
Natural Information
Natural Information Society with Evan Parker. And on that album is this guy, Joshua Abrams, who plays the Gwimbru. And our local record shop has got a couple of Joshua Abrams records in, which I thought was amazing. And this one, I think it's from 2011, and it's called Representing. And again, it's not the same as the Gendel Wilkes, but it is this kind of contemporary, interesting strand of improvisational music that just isn't sounding like something that's already happened before. You know, it's not sounding like spiritual jazz from 1972 or something. It's just sounding like what it is now. And I think the fact that he brings this kind of different sort of sonic texture with the gimbri, which was a big on the Natural Information Society. It's nice stuff. So yeah, just grooves, really, just grooves with sometimes just him playing the gimbri and a drummer, but there's some electronics in there. There's some sax, cello, flutes. Actually, you know, the connection to International Anthem would be Jeff Parker plays electric guitar on one tune, but it's again that kind of cohort of musicians who feel to me like they're genuinely doing something a bit different, which is great.
Yeah,
It's I'm just so impressed with this Natural Information Society. It's such a beautiful, trippy kind of almost gamelan-like record with Evan Parker just perfectly improvising on this, and yeah, it makes me want to buy like get other ones. You know, like it really does. It's so that one would be. I mean, I've not seen that one, but if I saw it, I would buy it. Next, okay, well, a sort of follow-up of sorts. Hang on, where is my okay? I'll try to follow up with here. I'm following up with you talk about an unusual instrument like the gimbri, and this release here is a new release from Melbourne, Australia, from where I am at the moment. This is a collaboration between Chinese Australian. She's called Mindy Meng Wang. It's a name, and an electronic artist called Tim Shield, and they both are based in Melbourne. And she plays an instrument called the guzheng, which is sort of like a Japanese koto, but a Chinese version of it. It's a 2 meter long stringed instrument, a bit like a harp, but it's got a very oriental sound to it. And so this is a meeting of this guzheng player with textured electronics, and it's very reminiscent of some of the stuff that you hear on early Fortet records. It's got these kind of Boards of Canada, especially Fortets, like if you like Rounds or Pause, this very first Fortets masterpieces, especially Rounds. You got a lot of these kind of beats, very pulsating, driving beats, with that Chinese instrument on top. And this is a label called Music in Exile, which has got and they specialize basically in promoting artists from migrant backgrounds. So they've got people from South Sudan on the label, people from Ethiopia, people from China, and the common trait is that they're all musicians based in Melbourne, and it's funded by the Australian music, the Council for Music. It's all done by grants. Pressed 300 copies. It's a beautiful record. I've been playing this a lot recently, and I'm thinking of buying a few copies and sending them to people who maybe you'll get copies because I think it's really worth. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, 300 copies is not very many, but it's a cool little project. I reckon it's beautiful. Anyway, I'm talking too much.
Not at all. Yeah, Mark on his radio show played some Hermeto Pascal a couple of weeks ago, and somebody got me to think. I've got a book actually he gave me. I met him when he came to hear me talk in a conference in Brazil. It was the most terrifying thing. I looked down in the front row of the audience, and he was sitting there next door to Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil, sitting in a row. I actually really stopped talking. I just saw him there. Anyway, but he gave me a copy of his scores, which are gorgeous, actually. But just an extraordinary artist, actually, just completely a total one-off, actually. And actually brilliant player. I mean, he just plays everything perfectly, whether he's playing kind of sax or flute or whether he's playing keyboards. I mean, just amazing, really. And I hadn't played this for a long time, this record, and it just sounded really good, actually. and good fun as well. Actually, I think as well. I mean, obviously you got the famous track with the pigs on it and stuff, but it's just sounded great actually. And what an amazing kind of spirit he's got as well, I think. Obviously, this one was produced by. This was probably his most kind of well-known one outside of Brazil, I guess, because it got distributed by Warner Brothers and stuff outside. But yeah, just great. I mean, all his records are good actually, but this one just hit the spot when I played it a couple of weeks ago. I met it.
Beautiful record. You're right. Yeah, I'm very impressed that these. These Brazilian music royalties were sitting there in the audience. That blows my mind. But last time I talked to you guys, you were telling me about Moses Malekwa, who you knew, and I brought that record, and now you're telling me about this.
It was very bad.
I think I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to have to go to bed.
I have to say, they didn't come just for me. They came because they were going to play a concert in the same venue later on in the day. But it was quite a scary moment, I have to say.
What were you talking about, John?
I was talking about music. And it's when I was head of music for the British Council. I was just talking about international collaboration in music and using some examples of some of the things we've done, actually. And he loved it. He came up and said, I really like what you said, and gave me a copy of this book, which I'll show actually. I'll get it out and show it.
Well, yeah, sadly, since we last met, the trumpeter, improviser, sonic explorer, Jon Hassell has passed away. And we were talking about, VC and, who's still around and what we watch. I do still pop into Derek Higgins, every now and again. And he's broadcasting these series of kind of like mini shows that he did for some, I don't know that it's an online channel, where he's basically in his house. Somebody phones and sort of says, I'm feeling a little bit down. Can you recommend something? And he pulls the track out from his vast catalogue of music. And anyway, I think someone was wanting to kind of, they were feeling really down with the kind of pandemic, and they just wanted to be taken somewhere else musically. And he pulled this out, which is
record.
It's a fantastic record on so much glare. This is, there we go, Jon Hassell, Listening to Pictures. And do you know this record, Fred?
It's one of his last ones, like the second last he did, or the last one he did.
Yeah. So it's 2018, and I think it was 80.
I must say, I've been on a huge Jon Hassell kick myself of late as well. So I approve very much.
Really, really lovely. I mean, and Derek played this track called Dreaming, which is the first track on side one, and it's transcendent. It's so interesting, and it's all around this notion of the pentimento, which is the word, the noun means the reappearance in a painting of earlier images, forms, or strokes that have been changed and painted over. So musically, he's trying to replicate that feeling of looking at a painting and seeing layers and seeing an original painting underneath, and he's doing it.
You can actually hear some of his older pieces almost bleeding through. I'm not literally, but he hasn't sampled them, but you can just hear little bits of his older work.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I played it very, very late last night. Actually, I played it about 1 o'clock in the morning. It sounded absolutely amazing.
Gorgeous, isn't it? And this was a label called the Endaya label that I didn't know about, but Warp Records basically kind of just said to Jon Hassell, we're going to create a label just for you.
Yeah.
Just to reissue your old stuff and put new stuff on it. And I just feel, there has been quite an outpouring with people like musicians and people just really respecting what this guy did. It's definitely, he's up there really with great innovators, I feel.
I have a little story, I'm afraid, not a very long one, but you mentioned Moses Malekwa. And the reason I got to know Moses was through a drummer called Andrew Missingham. And his wife, Claire, was a big fan of, or is still a big fan of Jon Hassell. And I got tickets to go and see him. And I went with her. And she just had a baby. About 3 months before, she just had a baby. And had been exhausted through all this. And we sat down. We had amazing seats. Sat down in the second row of It was John and Ry Cooder and Jim Keltner, and I can't remember who else it was. A fantastic band. And second, the lights went down. She went into deep sleep. I mean, not just a head nod. She just went like this, completely went went to sleep, and kind of slumped over me for the whole. I couldn't wake her up. She was completely exhausted. And he saw this, and he obviously thought it was very funny. But on the way out, he kind of almost kind of smiled at me. He was right in front of him as well. She was completely out like a light. But I thought just a very human guy to not be offended by this at all. Just think it was really funny.
Wow. Yeah, who wasn't falling asleep at a gig? I mean,
No, this wasn't just like that. This was spectacular. She just completely went out and slept.
Is that awful when you've paid good money to go to a concert, to a gig, and you're so freaking tired and you're just fighting? You know, like it's happened to me a couple of times. I was like, oh, this is just so unfair. I just feel so exhausted because you work all week long and you just go. Oh. Anyway, who is it? My turn? No,
Yeah.
Is it me? It is me. It's interesting because so far, you know, the segues have been kind of, you know, they've been working, and I've got yet another good segue. We talk about Jon Hassell, and here is a record which draws very much on the music of Jon Hassell and also of Steve Reich. It is the fantastic Midori Takada, Through the Looking Glass, which is a Japanese 1983 kind of tribal ambient minimalist record. It's a classic. I mean, you know, I think people in the VC know this enough. She is still alive, a percussionist from Japan, and you know, has been involved in a range of projects, but none of which I think have the intensity of this beautiful, and then sparse at times. You know, it's some of the tracks really remind you of like things like Music for 80 Musicians and things like of that style, and very Jon Hassell-esque as well. And this was really reissued by this Swiss label. We release Whatever the Fuck We Want Records, which is the best name for a label, really. They're a great reach, and you know, I don't know if you have this or if you know this, but it's a very, very highly recommended piece of ambient. I don't know what you call it, ambient, minimal. You know, sort of tribal ambient. You know, just beautiful. John, I see you nodding. I think you know this, and
I love it. Yeah, I've only got it on CD. I bought the record and had to return it because it was actually a complete mispress. It wasn't just a kind of warp. It was virtually unplayable. And then of course I couldn't get another copy of it, so I've only got it on CD. I haven't got it on record. So
I've got it actually, and I think, is there someone called Motoric somebody or other in the VC?
Alex, maybe,
yeah. I think he showed it, and I remember him being really excited about this record, and I was so impressed by his passion and enthusiasm that I've got a copy. So that's how I.
It's not like anything else. It's really, no. I mean, it's like a one-off. Okay, I'm going to go to McCoy Tyner.
It's a great record.
Junie Booth, the bass player, sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago, and made me go on I was already actually having a little bit of a McCoy Tyner binge, and this is just so powerful. I mean, we talk about people playing spiritual jazz in inverted commas now, but this stuff just takes the roof off. It's such a powerful. I find actually when I put his music on from this period, I can't actually sit down. I'm pacing around the room like a lunatic almost. Just incredible band with Alphonse Mouzon Jr. on bass and Azar Lawrence, and it's just the intensity of it is just fantastic, and the great tunes, and it's got a very, very uplifting kind of feel to it. I think actually. He plays so hard, McCoy Tyner. I always think there's actually a YouTube video of this concert from Montreux '73. He plays so hard, you think he's going to break the piano almost with his left hand. But it's a great album, this one. I mean, really any of those '70s milestone McCoys and they're really easy to find and don't cost a huge amount of money as well. They're just great stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Those milestones. There's McCoy Tyner on milestones. There's such good records, all of them. It's like you can pick any of them and it just it's incredible. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to come in too close beyond. There is a jazz sheen to this record.
Mm.
This is the Southern Energy Ensemble, and the album is called Southern Energy. And the guy behind this is called Marvin Daniels, the trumpet player. And basically there's a weird lineage of like different kind of versions of what he ended up doing, but there's a horn section on this album who ended up being called the Chops Horns. And this album sounds like a more kind of funky vocal version of the Headhunters. I think there's a strong jazz thing. It's grooving, but it's definitely coming in that kind of Headhunters. If you like those first Headhunters albums with Herbie, this definitely is hitting that spot. A lot of percussion, great playing, great grooves. He went on to work with Evelyn Champagne King, and then somehow ended up doing stuff with Bob Dylan, the Stones, and the Police. Which,
Why not?
yeah, and this has just been reissued, and tracks that I particularly love are FUNKY Till the Day I Die, C-Funk, Energy. It's nice, it's really great.
It seems to be representing you quite well. Oh well, I don't have anything to follow this up per se, but like last time, I think last time I talked to you guys, I purposely took out a record with bass on it because I know how much you love the bass and you're a bass player.
Yeah.
And this is another great bass record. This is Orlando Cachaito Lopez.
Yeah.
This guy was the bass player in the Buena Vista Social Club, and he made his only solo record in 1999, I think, 2000. No, actually 2001. And this is on World Circuit, as all of them are. And it's an instrumental Afro-Cuban jazz record. It's all over the shop. It's got even a little bit of hip hop sampling on it. Some scratching and some, and it's very elegant, very easy to listen to. It's groovy, and it keeps that kind of steady, mambo, slightly salsa tinge on every song, and the bass is at the front of this. Plays the double bass. You can see he's a double bass player, and he widely considered the best Cuban double bass player. It's got contribution from Miguel Anga Diaz and people like Ibrahim Ferrer and Hugh Masekela and Pee Wee Ellis, who was in the JBs or played with James Brown. So there you go. This is called Cachaito. It's called the record.
I saw him live around the time that album came out, and it was great. I mean, he had a massive bass sound in the middle of it. Then, right in the middle of the set, they segued into this P-Funk section, and they played all these kind of P-Funk tunes in the middle of it. An amazing kind of medley. It was great, and Pee Wee was with him at the time. It was just it was really. It was at the I think he was at the Hackney Empire. I think it was. I saw him. Really good stuff.
I've got that on CD. And of course, Pee Wee Ellis was the musical director for Van Morrison for a while, wasn't he? Yeah.
And he lives in Bath.
That's right.
Wow.
Where my mum lives.
This was actually a VCLT from Stavros, the Spinning Greek, back quite a long time ago, which got sent to Mark. And Mark, we always thought we were going to see each other earlier than we had done. And Mark sent it up to me. And it's a limited edition. It's a private press from North Carolina. Hello, Dave, from North Carolina. We should say hello to Dave there as well. And it's a funk band. And the Jimmy Person Quintet. Just really, really good funk album, really. Very soulful sound. And also it's got this weird, recorded in the early 80s, got a very strange, almost like proto-electro track on it called the E-Jam Sandwich, which I think is my favourite track on here. But it's just great. It's just a fun album, actually, really nicely played, well recorded. And it came out, and it was reissued by tidalwaysmusic.com. And yeah, really good stuff. So thank you, Stavros. Just also struck me, we mentioned Derek earlier on. We should give our condolences to Derek because his brother's just passed away, I've heard.
Oh, really?
Which is really sad. So yeah, a lot of respect and love to Derek, I think.
The guitar player.
I'm not sure that his brother was a guitar player, but yeah, I just noticed it on Instagram the last couple of days. He's obviously very upset by it. Yeah.
Right. Now, Fred, I know you're a big Floating Points fan.
Big time.
Do you know the Late Night Tales compilation that he curated? So you probably remember there's a couple of tracks from this guy, Alain Badash. Do you know this guy?
Yeah, love this. Yeah, I've got an original copy of this. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful record. Yeah,
beautiful record. I mean, there's the couple of tracks, Sun Blues and Sea Fluorescent, which are on that kind of compilation.
They follow each other it's almost like a suite of tracks. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And his voice reminded me a bit of. We were talking about that kind of folk funk thing, and Michael Gregory Jackson's voice is something a little bit similar, which I love that voice. But he's a French guitarist. As far as I know, he made 2 albums and 1 single, because I just, you can go in a deep dive these days and just research things. And this was, you can still get this reissued. This is a really lovely quality pressing. He went to New York and made a couple of albums. And there's interesting kind of collaborators. I mean, there's Jerry Goodman from Mahavishnu is on one of these tunes, and a great drumming, actually, someone called Fabiano. But I mean, not really a particular genre, just a guy who clearly had a lot to say musically and in many different ways, and was able to say it.
Very, very hard to pinpoint the style of music of this.
Yes.
At times versions on yacht rock, and sometimes it's more like a funk, it's like a little bit of a Crosby, Stills, Nash vibe as well. But with it's hard to pinpoint. It's all over the place. But Christoph gave me a copy of this. Christoph.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be watching. I talk to him all the time, but he sent me a copy of this quite a few years ago. So
I can see probably almost impossible to market it because it's not a genre.
It's like
that's why I like it so much.
Not in the same. I don't know. I can't follow this. Here's a record obviously all these records are records I've been playing quite a lot recently. That's what I've got them there. But this is a record that I've been playing a lot in the past couple of weeks. This is the Red House Painters. Red House Painters they're a band from San Francisco led by a very interesting character called Mark Kozelek, who now fronts a band called Sun Kill Moon and different other projects. And they were kind of the sort of unofficial head of this movement called slowcore, which is very sort of down and out kind of acoustic guitar, little drum, but mostly it's indie music from the early 2000s, or the early 1990s, but very sort of halfway between vitriolic lyrics and kind of really sad and melancholy. Like none of his songs, like his songs are all kind of, when you listen to the Red House Painters, you just think, is he going to be happy one day? It's just beautiful music, and this is kind of one of their first records. I don't think it's got it's called Down Colorful Hill. There we go. Yeah, and there's a great song called Japanese to English on this, which is beautiful. But it's just acoustic guitar. very sad, downtrodden, but not folk. It's not folk music. It's, do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, it's
Does it sound like Some Kill Moon at all? Is it?
yeah, very much, very much. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
really like that stuff. For him,
Yeah.
it's only him, isn't it? That is, he is Some Kill
Yeah.
Moon.
Yeah. And that was the band he was in to start with, from San Francisco, the Red Ass Painters. I didn't really explain it very well, but it's okay. It's late. We'll say. Okay.
I don't know. I've got too many records here to show. I think I'll show this actually. Just because I actually managed to get something from Record Store Day, which I don't often do. Actually, my entire haul from all the Record Store Days before has been one 7-inch single. And that's this anyway. This is vinyl pressing of the comeback album by Steely Dan. Of course, I mean everyone knows this. It does sound really good, I have to say. On vinyl, it sounds really, really good. And also, I think they must have cut it off. They cut a analog version of it at the same time as they did the digital one. So I think they must have taken it from there. Yeah, and it's great to have it. It's great to have this. I think it's a really underrated record. This one actually, particularly the last 3 songs. I think are as good as anything that Steely Dan have ever done. Really. So yeah, just very nice to have. Very pleased to have this, and thanks to Mark for picking it up for me. Actually, because I was laid up at the time.
Well, John, they don't make segues like this anymore.
That has to be.
Come on.
Oh, Dan.
This is the the album that came after that one. What's it called? Everything Must Go.
Their last album, in fact.
The last album Steely Dan ever made, and definitely different because they just had, you know, Steely Dan are kind of known for, you know, trying out loads of drummers and bass players, having loads of different guitarists. Well, I suppose actually when they started out, they were a band, and then they kind of got more and more adventurous with their choice of musicians. Maybe their budgets got bigger, but on this album, they're back to, you know, basically a band, and Walter Becker is playing bass and is taking most of the guitar solos. And there's a kind of mood. There's a slightly darkish mood that pervades that. Well, I mean, Everything Must Go. You've got this sense of you know, the world is ending and it's all over. It's not depressing, but there's a kind of moodiness which I really like, but it's also deeply groovy and really nicely produced. And yeah, I never had the CD, so this really for me was getting the album for the first time, and again a really, really nice pressing. And I particularly love the track Godwhacker, but Green Book is great. Things I Miss the Most is great. Do you know this, Fred?
Not this album. I mean, I do love early Dan. I mean, his first probably 4 or 5 albums I'm a fan of. I think they're but not the latest stuff. No, I mean,
yeah, that's really nice. But I mean, both those last albums actually.
Everything Must Go. It was all that. Also, Everything Must Go was cut analog as well, so it was all
all analog. So it sounds it's the right format.
Real sound nerds they were. Those two.
Absolutely.
Just a bit.
Completely obsessed with sound. Well, you know, it's not exactly a segue of you know, my last record here is nothing to do with still, but here is a sound nerd as well, a real sound nerd. I've been rediscovering the second My Bloody Valentine record, Loveless, which is you know, a watershed record in British, you know, alternative rock history. Although, you know, Kevin Shields is Irish, you know, you can say, but it's just pegged in that sort of shoegaze genre. They're the heirs of the Jesus and Mary Chain and the Cocteau Twins. Do you know this record? I presume you know this record, yeah? John is nodding.
I love
Well, it's kind of one of these kind of key moments in music history where a guy, Kevin Shields, completely obsessed with guitars and completely obsessed with sound, goes into a studio, almost bankrupts a label in the process. It was on Creation Record, and allegedly they spent £250,000 for this record, but but I mean, it's rumored to be much less than this. And so My Bloody Valentine were a 4-piece, but basically Kevin Shields went in the studio by himself and just played everything by himself because he just didn't want the other members of the band to get involved. This has been reissued very lovingly and officially released by the band this year. I've had this on CD for many years, and I thought, why buy a vinyl copy? But I think there's a difference sonically. Because what you've got here is layers upon layers of guitar, very sort of the sonic palette is very drenched, like distorted guitar, and you've got these kind of ethereal voices that sort of sit halfway through. There's no middle on this. It's almost like they've just erased some of the sonic ranges have been just completely wiped out of the board, and you've got this kind of like spectral, beautiful shoegazy, ethereal voices coming out of nowhere. It's a beautiful record, and I think one of the most important records that ever come out of that sort of early 90s. 1991, just released about 6 weeks after Nevermind, I think, but very different, as different. John, you're going to say you've got it. So what would you say?
Yeah, I love it. It's been a great. In fact, there's a new the radio station that both Mark and I do a show on. There's a new young woman who's a DJ on Saturdays on there, and she played a track off that as one of her favourite tracks, and it's just so great to hear it. Actually, it's massive. I mean, it's almost like hearing the John Hassell record in a weird kind of way, but there's so many layers coming through in the whole thing.
Yeah, it's not a record that when you first get to it, it's not something that you will love instantly. I don't think it's something that it repeats when you play it more than a few times, and you start understanding what they're doing, what he's doing. It's a bit like a Captain Beefheart record. You just go, I understand what he's doing. But there's this famous quote that says that almost nobody bought the first Velvet Underground record. But everybody who did form the band, and you could say on the opposite side of the spectrum, a lot of people bought this record, but nobody could replicate the sounds. Like nobody could form bands that sounded like this because it's just so. And it's interesting because Kevin Shields plays the guitar in such a very strange way. He plays with the tremolo bar, like this. Yeah. He plays. It's moving all the time, like his guitar is completely out of tune most of the time, but it's got this sonics, this great wall of sound. Anyway,
the only person who gets close to him in terms of that depth of sound is Fenez. Do you know Fenez? The
Austrian,
certainly live. I mean, I was involved with a festival where he played. He was the last act, and there you started to get that incredible washes of sound, but just coming from one guy basically and one guitar, but with rather a lot of effects pedals, has to be said. Actually. But you suddenly notice that you're hearing this music, and then you suddenly notice your trouser legs are flapping at the same time as well, because it's hitting all kinds of sonics that you weren't hardly aware of. Actually, great stuff. And I have no connection at all with them. This was my birthday present from Mark, which I was very pleased to have. And it was a really weird bit of synchronicity because I was playing In the Light dub and thinking, this is such a great record. And I thought, why? I don't have In the Light. Why don't I have In the Light? Really, and then 2 days later, a box appeared with In the Light in it, which was kind of fantastic. But just a great album, this one, actually. But all the there's a lot of interesting, weird, buried kind of guitar parts, lead guitar parts going on in this record as well. And one of my favourite drummers as well, Horsemouth Wallace, who I've always kind of loved. Actually, I love that Leon Blues style. But classic Horace Andy, really, really good stuff.
Nice. Well, I don't know about you guys, but the lockdown has got me deeper into music than before, and I have more time, and I've been getting into Shindig magazine. I don't know if you get that, Fred.
I know. I've seen it before. Yeah,
and they had a little feature on Eddie Pillar and Acid Jazz, which is not a label that I have a huge amount of, and I have to say I'd never checked this band out. This is Mother Earth and the People Tree. I don't know. I kind of just thought maybe they might be sounding like Corduroy, or that there was a few bands that I just that seemed to be all about what they looked like and not about what the music was like. But actually, although they look quite modish, this has, I kind of see this album now a bit alongside the Road to Freedom, Young Disciples, kind of came out in a similar period, and it's a distinctly UK take on, you know, a kind of jazz infused, soulful pop music, I guess. And I really like Matt Dayton's voice. I can hear they're very sort of influenced by Traffic, and Paul Weller's, I mean, he sounds a bit like Paul Weller when Paul Weller sounds really soulful, and Paul Weller's on the album, as is DC Lee. But it's actually just I really like this album. It's great. And again, it's one of these, you know, it was cut on analog tape, so it sounds great on vinyl, one of those ones. Yeah, and that's my final selection.
I've got this Mother Earth record on CD. I picked it up for $1 in a charity shop, but I haven't really explored it that much. Maybe I'll put it out and I'll play it. Yeah. So you said a film or a book. I'll talk about a film and a book because why not? The book that I've just started, I must admit, I haven't really gone far into it. I read mostly novels. Like 95% of the time, I read literature or novels, either modern or classic. And I've started Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie, which is like one of probably his most classic novel, but there's not much I can say about it because I've only just started. It's, you know, he writes very well, and it's, you know, it's, but there's not much I can say about it. Movie. I presume you've both read this book before, no?
Yeah, a very long time ago. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, everybody knows Salman Rushdie. It's not a. But movie-wise, it's interesting because as a teacher, I at the moment I'm with one of my classes, the senior class, they're 18, what you would call in England sixth form. You know, the 18-year-olds. Yeah, we're doing a whole unit on the French New Wave, and I'm getting to rewatch some classic new wave movies like Breathless, and I watched this Godard movie last night called Masculin Féminin, which is like 1966. It's very Godard, lots of sort of Marxist references and very strange kind of, you know, like it is, the narrative is, you know, it doesn't go from A to Z. It just goes into all sorts of, but they're beautiful films, and I'm showing my students The 400 Blows as soon as we can get back to school. Les 400 coups by Truffaut. I presume you know these movies. Some of my favorite movies. So that's what I've been watching recently. Rewatching new wave movies, but just because I'm just doing it in class with the kids.
I love that stuff. My one side of my family is French. My grandparents French, and they had a membership of the film club at the French Institute. And I used to use their membership card and go and see Godard films. They used to show them all the time. I sort of love all that stuff. Actually, definitely part of my culture. I think actually, I love it. And they're just great. They look gorgeous, and they're just very nice to be at your school, I think, and be able to see Godard films.
Well, but you know, my approach with this thing is that, you know, obviously, you know, as a teacher, I view it as a sort of responsibility to expose the kids to stuff that they wouldn't normally get near. You know, like what's Australian 18-year-old would go and see a Truffaut movie? No, they wouldn't, you know. And for me, it's like, oh, you know, this is a great piece of art. It's just, you know, let's talk about it.
You'd be arrested and put in prison for doing that in the UK, I think.
Really?
No. The curriculum doesn't allow for things like that in the UK, I don't think.
It's just, you know, it's what we're doing at the moment. Anyway, I digress.
So my book has been this actually for the last few days, actually, which is the second of two books about David Bowie's kind of a bit like the. What was that Beatles book called, Mark? Do you remember the one which went through every single Beatles song?
Revolution.
Revolution in my mind, or in your mind. Yeah.
Does a similar plot. I mean, it's a huge. This covers the period from Low to Black Star, and just this guy had a great blog. O'Leary had a great blog called Pushing Ahead of the Dame, which basically, and it just deconstructs every single Bowie track and goes through who's playing on it, how it's recorded. And what really struck me was that one of my favourite, and again, Mark played it recently on his show, one of my favourite Bowie tunes is the Bring Me the Disco Queen. And he basically, there's a whole chapter just on that one track on there, actually talking about how it was put together. And it's just really, really nicely put together. Not kind of quite different to the Beatles book in that it's much more, a lot of literary references, and he basically goes through and deconstructs every track, and it's definitely worth a read. And my film is a TV series actually. I think I talked about it in an earlier session we had, but I've been watching Bosch, the American TV series, and it's just come to an end. I feel completely bereft, actually. And the last one last night, actually, and I just think, oh my God. And it's been like 7 series going over for years and years and years. And he's just such a great character. And of course, he's a music lover, and there's lots of references to jazz through the whole series as well. And
he's got a great pad. His pad in LA and the record collection. Every time you go, I'd like to see what's in there.
and there's lots of Art Pepper dropped into a lot of them, and just great characters, really well written. I mean, it's kind of a little bit. It's got a little bit of The Wire in it. It's not as good as The Wire, but in a way, it's like a slightly more, slightly less complex version of The Wire. But yeah, so we're gonna have to live without that now.
John, the book that I want to share is upstairs, and I can't actually remember what it's called, but it's the book you gave me for my birthday, which is the Mawandishi Herbie Hancock.
I've got it, but I've only got it on Kindle.
But what's it called?
It's called, I can't remember. My Kindle.
Okay, I will show it next time we make a video.
Great book.
I've been meaning to show it. I don't know. It's not here. So I can't really show it, but that's the book I've just finished reading. The film that I've been watching, or the film I watched, which my daughter suggested, and I read this book when I was doing my American and Commonwealth Arts course many, many years ago at Exeter, is Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor. And the film of that book, I don't know if you've seen it, it's very weird. It's one, sometimes you see a film that is just, it stays with you because it's just so odd.
Right.
This one is that. It's great. Really, really good.
It's the Wire Vest film, isn't it?
It's the Wire Vest film. Yes, that's the one. Yeah, really good. Highly recommended. Just almost, I don't know where I'd start to describe what it's about. It's just strange.
Definitely want to show your students.
You've intrigued.
and I'm trying to think who the director is. It's a really famous director, and again, he made this way deep into his career. I think he was in his 70s or 80s. It's John someone or other. John
Schlesinger.
John Schlesinger. There you go. Yeah, great movie.
I must check it out. just on the basis of your recommendation. Yeah. That's sensible.
Well, listen, guys, I'm gonna end the recording. As ever, lovely to hear any comments, etc. And love to everybody. And yeah, see you soon.